This will be a video on Embird 2025's new node tools and node conversions and options that we're given now in the new Embird 2025 Studio Next. It's just amazing, the options that we have now when we're creating with our nodes. For instance, if I click Outline Tool, we're given the choice here to use our simple quadratics as what we were used to in the past. We could use a straight line, or we can use the new cubic Bezier. This one is like a quadratic Bezier. Embird calls it a simple quadratic. This one is new for 2025, and a lot of people are having a hard time making the transition. And in 12.02, Embird made it like 20 times easier to make this transition. And then they even added a few extras. So I'll show you what I mean. So the first thing I want to say is, remember this box here, this drop down arrow, is what you choose for, say, the next thing that you're going to lay down, the next node that you're going to lay down. So if I want to lay down all quadrat, I'm sorry, start over. So if I want to lay down all cubic Beziers, okay, for my next time I click here, that's what I'll click, cubic Bezier, and I'll snap to grid for this, and I'll just click. And then maybe I'll zoom in a little bit, and then I'll just snap it. And so the next node that I laid down is going to show like it's a cubic Bezier. So I'll just click, and notice I have, this is something new for 12.02, I have midpoint checked. So this is just like an old Studio Regular, where you're allowed to now choose whether you want to just click and then have your next node be square and that's it, and then you have to pull up the center, or if you check this, your next node is going to be round. That's what this round is. So yes, it looks square now, but as soon as I click again, it'll turn round. So you have to decide then, okay, say I want my roundness to be there, okay? And so then my next one, I'll click, see how it turned round, and I click there. Now, with the old style quadratic, well, I don't want to go there yet, but so the other thing that you'll notice is our little handles, they're little circles now instead of arrows. But if you want the arrows to come back, if you can see those better, you can bring them back. Sometimes you don't want them because maybe you want to, snap them right on top of each other, and it just looks neater and it's easier for you to see, and so on. And the other thing that they did, this is going to blow you away. If you want to move both of these at the same time, you don't have to lasso them anymore. You can just click on the line and drag it up and drag it over. Check it out. This is something I requested, and look, they gave it to us. That is how cool they are. If they can do something, they will do it for you. Thank you so much, Embird. And the other thing is, let's say, okay, we have this, and we'll just say we're gonna, I'm gonna actually show you this. click here, and I'm going to just maybe show it to you in with two different sides. So I'll go ahead and I'll try to make them kind of look similar. Let's see. So this one would be here and here. Okay. And so now if I wanted to change this to quadratic, that's when you use these buttons up here. So this choice is for like the next thing that I click. Say the next thing I click, I want it to be quadratic. So I'll click end on my keyboard, and then the next thing I click, you know, that's quadratic. And it's a midpoint quadratic, okay? But these up here are for when you have a node selected or a bunch of nodes selected and you want to change them to something else. Now, since the quadratics are grayed out, we know that I'm on a quadratic node. And if I want to change that node to cubic, I just click there. And the one thing that is like the characteristics of cubic and quadratic are such that if you start with quadratic, which is what this one is, and then you switch it to cubic, it retains its shape. It doesn't get distorted because cubic can be really exact with the handles and so on. But if you start with cubic and you go to quadratic, okay, so let me just delete those. Delete that. Whoops. Control C. I'll just Control C. So these are all cubic. So if I start with cubic and I go to quadratic, okay, I want to convert. Now Embird gives you two choices. Well, what kind of quadratic do you want to convert to? Because originally in, you know, just a couple versions ago in 12.0, we only had this choice. Meaning, let's just say, say this one was kind of there and this one was maybe like that. Okay. If I just wanted to change this line, and you can click on this handle or this handle, but I'll just click here. If I wanted to change that to quadratic, it's not probably going to follow this exactly, and I'll show you what I mean. See how it distorted it. But now, and notice what it's doing is with this choice, all it did was between the two nodes, it just inserted a round node. You know, this is a round node that we're used to seeing. Okay. But if I would have selected this one, see how it has a star? That means it's like more exact. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me Control Z. So here's this cubic. And I'll select the handle. Like I said, you don't have to select that square node. You can just select the handle and it'll take care of this segment right here. But anyways, if I select this one, it's going to be a more exact quadratic, and it probably won't distort this. And I'll show you what I mean. See how it made it more exact? It said, oh, okay, if you want to keep this shape and go to quadratic, we have to add this many nodes in. And now, if I click the check mark, is that going to be smooth? It's pretty smooth. It's pretty smooth. Let's Control Z. Oh, that takes it away. Let's redo. Let's go in and click it and edit it. So yeah, it pretty much kept it. So if you want it to be more exact, then choose this one. Now, sometimes you'll have a quadratic or a cubic that, let's just hit end and start. So I'm on quadratic. I'm going to go back to cubic, and I'll go back to, let's see, I'm doing the midpoint. I'll go to, say, this one. Let's see, I'm at 1, 2. I'll just go there, I guess. And I'm just going to drag this down. And notice I look at that little dot right there. That's showing me where I'm going to be snapping. Check that out. Now, just because that's snapped there, it's still not, symmetrical on either side, but that's when you can, have the choice to snap these if you like. Then it's symmetrical. But sometimes you don't need it to be symmetrical. You just need it to be smooth, So, but let's try and make this, I'm going to see if I can make just one curve that when I switch it to quadratic, it distorts. I might be able to get it to distort. Let me just hit enter and then go back into edit so you don't see that other. Okay. So it's cubic. I'm going to switch it to just the regular quadratic. That's just going to give me a round node here. And let's see if it distorts. Because see how steep it is? It might distort it. Yeah, it did. See? It's not holding that shape. But let's Control Z. And if I now use this one, it'll probably be more exact because it's going to probably put a square node here and round nodes here. Let's see. And that's what it did. But notice where it put the round nodes, not halfway. It's like, oh, this is something steep, so they have to be up there. Like Embird just knows where to put them. And let's hit enter, see if that's smooth. Pretty smooth, except for right there, it's not. And so what you would do then, if you want to stay with quadratic, you'd hit enter, you'd click on here, and you'd add to make that square, add up here. You'd click on this one, add, keeping your eye on this, and then you would go ahead and delete that. Once you have two squares here, whoops, wrong one. Click there and delete it. And now the round is up there. And then, that's how I used to fix things in the old days. So there's just so much more power. Now, all of our new options really come in handy when you want to design off of an image that you imported. So this is just a clip art that I imported as an image. And yes, usually with something like this, I would just let it auto-digitize. In other words, I would bring it into Inkscape, do trace bitmap, save it as an SVG, and then import it as an SVG, and it would have already come in auto-digitized here in Embird. But sometimes people don't want to do that, or maybe they don't know how and they just don't want to learn. And a lot of times you'll get a logo or something that you have to digitize, and a lot of people just like to trace right over that logo. So this would be an example of that, and this has a lot of the curves that really lend themselves to using the cubic Bezier, but you can also use the quadratic in certain areas where like there's a C shape. The quadratic comes in handy there. But let me just show you my process of doing this from importing the image to how I'm tracing. You can see I've already traced a bunch of them over here. I actually traced them as mesh objects. So they show blue, but they're showing purple on here because of the pink image. But yeah, you could see I just basically traced each one of them over the image. So I'll go ahead and I'll start from like scratch to show you how I brought the image in. So I'll just do design new. I don't need to save it. And it looks like I'm in inches. Let me go into units, metric, and I'll do image import. Clip art, flowers, rose iron, those are my folders. And this was the pink one, there it is. And I'll just click open. You could see it's a PNG. And I'll click open. Do I want to scale it to fit my current hoop? I'm just going to say yes. And if you go into normal view, it'll show your image and what you've digitized over it when you did your tracing. So this little part of the flower here would be a really good example of using the cubic, because one thing I want to mention about the cubics really lend themselves to S shapes. It makes it so easy to do a perfectly smooth S. And you can see here that from here, imagine this an S laying on its side. Okay, there's the first part of the S, and then this is where it goes back. Okay, and normally you can get away with making an S curve with just two nodes if you use the cubic. Sometimes you'll need a third node right here where the transition is, and in this case I think we would, but let me just show you. I'm going to go into just vector view so that I don't have that showing, and I'm going to just I'll show my grid. Whoops, let's see, up here, view, layout, grid, and I'll zoom in, view, layout. Oh, I don't have it showing. Okay. And normally, you know, an S shape, if I just say grab this outline tool, if I want to make an S, and I'll just snap to the grid for right now, say I'm on 40 here, so I'll click and snap, zoom in a little more. Now I don't have this checked, but because if you think about it, you see the shape of this gives you a tip off. This is good to use when you're using quadratics, or if you're making a C-shaped cubic. And I'm making an S shape. For right now, I'll just leave it off. And I think what I'll do is I'll turn the arrows on just so that you could see the difference between, you know, the handles and regular nodes. And I'll click here and do cubic. And so I clicked my first node, and then I could just go over here to say 40 and click and snap there. And you can see with my two handles, I can definitely make an S shape. You know, say I snap here, you can snap these as well. And that's the other reason why I like to have them round, because then when I snap to something, I can see it better. And say I want to go up here and snap there. So I kind of snapped them symmetrically, but of course you don't have to do that, and you don't even have to snap them. But there's your S shape, and here's that straight part, the transition area. If you're just, you know, doing this object just without tracing something, if you're just doing it freehand out of your own imagination, you don't really need a node here for this straight line. You can if you want something really exact. If you're tracing something, like if this were a really different type of S shape that was, you know, not real symmetrical and you really needed it to be a little bit different in through here, and you don't want your handles to be this long just to get the shape that you want, then yeah, you probably should put a node in here, and I'll show you how to work with this transitional node. So to get something here, you know, between this and this, you don't have to click the node, you can click the handle and you just hit insert up here. So I just clicked a handle and insert. And there it is. And notice it comes in, let me zoom in a little. It comes in a diamond shape, and you could see this is grayed out. The diamond shape means it's a cusp node, meaning it could be a corner if you want. But if you want it to be a transitional node for like your S, you do want to make it smooth. That's what this one is. You can have the handles different lengths, but you want it to be smooth, and that's the symbol for a smooth cubic is a square. And when you make it smooth, your handles will move in the same manner. I can make this one shorter and this one won't change, but as I rotate them, they will stay. Probably see that the way it looks now, it almost looks like it's not, let me zoom out, it's not going to be smooth there. I don't know, I could just tell. And so in that case, you probably want to maybe make this a little bit longer. That makes the transition a little better. You might want to make this one a little longer, and it might help your transition a little bit better. And the other thing is you could use the nodes on for here and here to help with this area. Even though it's governing this side, it will influence that. And so if you notice, I can kind of bring it so it's, even if I want to make it shorter, I can maybe bring it so it's straighter. And same thing with this one. Granted, hold my right mouse button. I can kind of bring that, and then this looks like it's straight. And the thing with the smooth nodes, their handles will show us a straight line. In other words, their handles will form what we call in math a tangent line. A tangent line is just a line that passes through exactly one point on a curve. And it's a straight line that passes through one point on a curve. And so that's what the smooth nodes give us, because these are in the same horizontal plane, these two sections. Now if I were to switch this to cubic, then I could change one of these, and you could say, well, yeah, this is a tangent line, but it's imaginary. Tangent goes off here. It's not really in what we're seeing. It's not a true tangent line. But if you make it smooth, it will make it a nice smooth transition as best as it can. And if it didn't, then that's when you mess with this handle and this handle to get it smooth. So this transitional node here is your friend. Now, if you want something to be more circular, you can click the smooth one, and if it still didn't do it and you're working on a more circular type of design, you can click this one, because this is symmetrical, so the handles are the same length on either side. So if, say, we clicked here and then I clicked and I kind of wanted it to be a little more circular, I would click on this to make this tangent. And then you notice this handle is longer than this one. If I want this to be more circular, I can try clicking here, and it did help me a little bit, but now what I can do is I move these, they're going to move together just like the smooth one did, and they're also going to lengthen and shorten together. So now I kind of made it a more circular transition. I'm not sure about this right here, if it's smooth anymore, in which case I probably either bring this one like longer, because that makes it smoother, maybe tilted. It doesn't seem to be doing it really the way I want. So what I would do then is I would take this one and make it longer. That'll affect this. But since it's symmetric, it's also going to make this one longer, and I don't want to touch this one. So with this selected, either way, I could select this, I would make it smooth. So I'd still maintain the tangent, but now I can influence this a little bit more because this handle is the only one that'll lengthen. So I can kind of get it smooth. I don't want to do too much because I don't want to wreck the circularness of this. And then here, I'm thinking I might have to pivot this. Now remember, it's smooth, so it will pivot, and that, and lengthen that one. Now it looks flat there. So let's see. So now I got that. I think it might be smooth, but I'm not sure. Sometimes you have to move it up in the order. If I want to move it closer here to get this to have more influence, say I'd move this closer or up in the line, and that might help me a little bit more. What you're looking for is you want to have a long enough section where the dotted handle is right on top of the line, the vector shape, and that you want that section to be as long as possible. Now this side of the node looks nice and long. If I zoom in even a little bit more, you could see that from, like, say here to here, that tangent line is riding exactly along the vector shape. Now this side of the node, the section is a lot smaller. So say from here to here, the tangent line is directly on top of the vector shape. It still might be a big enough of a section for this whole area to be smooth. Let's zoom back out. Let's just hit enter and see. Yeah, that's pretty smooth. I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. But you'll know, you can see how you can kind of use things to your advantage. Now, if I want this one to be a little more, not as oval, I can bring that down. Okay. And let's see how that goes. Not bad. Now, the other thing you could do is you could take this smooth node and you can actually just move it down in this case so that this overlap distance is more equal to this overlap distance. See how this one is really short and this one is longer. So if we take this node and move it down farther, then we might be able to have a longer length where the handle is directly on top of the vector shape. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to take it and slide it down, maybe to right about there. And I can still shorten this just to keep that one the same. And then it does look like we have a little bit longer here. Let's just see if we can lengthen this to be back to up to where it was, and see if we can get an even longer stretch here. Let's just zoom in and see. It's kind of hard to see with the, with the other one still there. Let's hit enter and then we'll go back in. Let's hit edit and let's see if we got a longer length there. It's still a little short, but it does look more, a little bit longer. So say from here to here, I don't know. I think I'm going to slide it down a little bit more just to get this to be longer and, closer in length to this one. So let's go down, say, a whole block diagonally. And let's just zoom out. I'm going to hold my minus button. And without moving any handles, let's just see how that looks. Hit enter. That does seem to smooth it out without even moving the handles. And I can also work on this to make this more circular if I wanted. Let's hit edit. And let's see how that one looks before I work on the circle. Let's see, I've got, I don't have a measure when I'm in edit mode. So let's see, I got from here to here. This one is still longer, but it does look so much better. I could probably go down even farther. My goal is I'm just trying to get this node in the center of where the nice overlap is. I'm going to see how that looks. Hit enter again. I actually liked it better before. Control C. Yeah, see it just looked better that way. So I'm going to let it go with, as far as moving it. And then I could probably lengthen this just to see what happens up here. I could possibly do something like that. And then, like I said, over here, I think I'd like to make this a little more circular. Maybe I'll move this one in. Let me try this one first. Whoops. Control C. If I move that one in and maybe move this up. I don't want to disturb this area of it, but just kind of make it more circular. I think I'm going to like that. Nope, I don't like it at all. Control C. Try it again. It just looked squared off. I might just let it go. So since it's symmetrical, when I shorten this one shortened as well. So it's like I made it flatter. So let me hit Control Z. We'll make this smooth so that I could shorten this side without affecting that side. Not that I think that's a good idea. I'm not sure. I just thought it might look better. Let's see how that looks. I like that. I do like that a lot. So you could see how much fine control you can have with just a few nodes. And if I didn't like, the way that this was shaped and I wasn't really getting anywhere, I could always add another node. Just click here and insert and add another node. Sometimes that makes it more distorted though, because you don't get this smoothness, because now you're dealing with this section and this section having to match. Yes, you could make this smooth and then try and, just work on this section and so on. Maybe drag this out like that. But sometimes, like I said, it actually makes it more distorted. But let's see. No, it actually looks fine. So I did a good job there. But I thought it looked fine even without adding that node. So it's totally up to you. The less nodes you have, the better, of course. It'll look even better without the grid on, view layout grid. And there you go. So let's go ahead now and work on that image that we brought in. And let's see about tracing that and using our S shapes on it. And then we'll go back to our normal view, which shows our image. I'll just click here for 1:1. And since it is so large, let's kind of zoom out. It is pretty large. Let's see how that's pretty large. Like I don't think I need to digitize it that large. And I believe I made it 190 in my other design. Let's see. So I would go to Image, Tools, Edit Image Window, and click down here, Size. Yeah, it's too big. So I'll make it 190 in height because my hoop is 200 in height. Keep aspect ratio, check, and then check up here. There we go. That's much more manageable. And so now we'll go ahead and, I wonder how big this is. Well, this doesn't matter. We've got it hidden. I'll go ahead and I'll show you now how I would just trace over this design. So say I'm going to do the mesh, and I can see that this is kind of a C shape, kind of. It looks like it's a little curved right there. And it looks like I have a little bit of a curve there. I'm trying to think how I did it on the original. I could look on the original to see, but let's just kind of wing it. So I'll go and grab my mesh tool. I'll go with the cubic, and if you click midpoint with cubic, it doesn't put a point there, but it does kind of follow your curve. So from here to here, I'm going to imagine that as a C shape, and I'll just go ahead and show you with the midpoint. So if I zoom in a little bit and I click, and then if I want my midpoint, that would be the height of this C shape, kind of ends there. And a word to the wise, when you do a cubic, you don't really want to put your last node where the C shape actually ends. You want to put it a little before it ends, because then you can curve it. So I'm going to put it like right the end node here, but the middle node I'll put here. Well, there's not going to be a middle node because it's cubic, but I'll just put, that's going to disappear. So that's my midpoint. And then I'll put the other one like right there. So notice how there's no node there, but I got that C shape. Okay. And so now from here to here, Yes, I do see another C shape, so I think I'll let it stay on the midpoint tool, and it starts to curve here. So before that curve, I'm going to end my C. So I'm going to end it here, which means I'll just put my midpoint like right about there. And then when I hit this, now you can see I've got almost the C shape I want. And I don't even have to drag these handles now because Embird is allowing us to drag the line, and I can put it where I want. And I want to make sure that this node here has that true tangent line, because this, even though it's not a real S-shaped type of transition, it kind of is almost. I want this to be smooth on either side of this node. So with it selected, it's a cusp node, and it probably would be smooth if I left it, but just to be sure, I'm going to hit this smooth node. Okay, so now it made it smooth. So now remember, if I move this handle, it's going to move it on this other side. So normally if you hit the smooth and you don't want to mess up, where it is on either side of the node, then just move the node itself and not the handle. I think I'm okay with these showing. Now this one I can move, it's still cusped. I can influence this with this handle if I want. So notice I'm not moving the line anymore because that'll move both handles. I'm just moving this handle. So I'm kind of good with that. If I wanted this to really follow this, where these where it's pixelated there, I could technically add another node in here. So with either this handle or this handle selected, I could click, and then I can pretty much click here, and I can make this one smooth though before I do anything, because I don't want this side to mess up. And I can kind of shorten it and maybe twist it. That might work. And then this one now, I can, if I just want to influence closer here, I make it shorter. And for then this one, I'd have to probably lengthen it. And maybe take the node down. I think I'm okay with that. And then I would move over to here. Now this, I would call a true S. This is like the first part of the S here. And then this is like the transition area. And then this is kind of the second part. And I know it's not really very, you don't see it real strongly, but I'm going to try and simulate this S the best I can. Since I know that I do want a node here, I'm just going to uncheck this. And with this clicked here, I'll just click where I want my transition node, and then I'll click up here. And so now, since this is my transition, I know right away I'm just going to make it smooth, and then I'm going to pivot it. Okay. And I can make it longer to influence it farther out. And now I can go and adjust this end and this end. Now, remember, this is still a cusp node, so it's not going to influence the left side. So I'm just going to bring up the right, and maybe like that. And you could see that this and this, they're almost in the same horizontal plane, which means I could just make this smooth, and that'll take care of this smoothness going through here. and it won't really change. Notice these didn't really jump into line because they were already pretty much in line. So I'm good with that. This one, I could probably influence it a little more because you could see here and here. This could go down and this could go up. I'm going to make it longer. And it looks like I influenced this, but this kind of got away from me. So I'm just going to move this down, take the note itself and move it down. Maybe move it up more in the transition area. I think I'm okay with that. And then here it looks pretty good. It's still smooth. And then this one, then I'll just influence this area. So now the entire one side is going to be pretty darn smooth. Now this is a mesh object, so I have to close it. So, and with this point here, a lot of times digitizers will say, well, I don't know if I want to make a point. I think if I hit end on my keyboard, it'll take me to the end node here. A lot of digitizers will say, you know, I just want to put a node there and have two nodes instead of a point. And you can do that, you know, because then it might make this better. This point won't look really bad when you know, with the threads trying to come to a point. But let's zoom in and see just how close they are. Okay, one thing is you don't want your handles to touch. So let's, with this node selected, let's make this straight. This, you know, that's fine if it's straight. And let's just put that there. And then let's zoom back out. I'll just click 1 to 1, drag it down with my right mouse. Okay, so now I'll zoom in with my plus sign. I look at this here. This is pretty easy. I could probably, it looks like I have an S here and say this is my transition area. And I might be able to just make it to here. Honestly, I might be able to just have a node here in the transition area and one way over there. I could try it. So that one is selected. And I'll just click. So I'm not doing the midpoint because I want a node. I'm just going to click over here and see what happens. Whoops, not there. Click end. And then I'll just click there. And I'll just kind of move it close. And I'm just going to drag the line down. And you can see that this probably needs another node, a transitional node there. But let's just see. And then here for this one, okay, this is going to have to be an S shape. So right away we'll make this smooth since we know it's a transitional node. And we'll pivot it. And now we'll drag this one shorter. See how much we can influence it. We'll pivot it a little bit more and make it shorter again. And then up here, it looks like we can influence this section with this handle. And the farther you bring it out, the more you influence out here. And this one I might want to make a little longer. Okay. And it looks like, yes, we probably need a transitional node here. So I'm going to just click this and hit insert. And I'll just kind of drag this one up here where I want it to be. And I'll just pivot this around. And I'll make this one shorter now. So we've got an S going here. Let's bring this closer. Let's kind of zoom into this. And let's bring this closer, and we're not going to make it straight here, but we're going to click this one, make it straight, and then just close edges up here. I'll snap there. I'll leave that like that. Well, I don't know. I'll just put it there. And so let's go 1 to 1, drag it down with my right mouse, zoom in a little bit. Okay. So now let's drag this line down. So notice I'm just dragging the line. Let's influence this a little bit. And this one has to come out a little because there is a subtle S here. It's very subtle. I don't want the grid to show. I'm going to actually turn the grid off. Let me hit enter. View, layout, grid. Okay. And I'm going to control S. We'll call this 2 or just lesson. And let's go back into edit now without the grid, and I can kind of show you. So you see here there is a little bit of an S going on. Looks like I can come in a little. I must be snapping to a grid that's not showing, so I'll uncheck that. And then this one, I did come in a little bit on it. I mean, look how exact I'm being, right? So let's zoom out. I'll just hold down my minus button, pan over. And then here, I'm going to kind of bring it out and then drag it down. And then you can see though that it's not smooth, so I don't have these two handles on the same horizontal plane, and I really want that for this. And I actually want this to be, I'm going to bring it here more so it's not where this is changing. I don't want this node. I want it a little bit before it's changing. And so now I'm going to influence this side a little bit better. And then now I can curve this out and curve this in. And now I'm going to, they almost look like they're in the same horizontal plane, these two handles, but as soon as I click here, they'll jump into line. And there you can see this one moved a little bit. Now this one is still cusp. And again, these two handles are in the same horizontal line. Let's just see if I can drag this. Okay, and I'm going to hit smooth on this one. And it just kind of, smoothed it up a little. And if I need to add more nodes to follow this shape, I will. But I think I'm still good over here. Let me hit enter because I'm getting confused between the original. Okay. So over here, it looks like I needed to come out a little more. Control S, hit enter. Hit edit. And let's click on this one, and it does look like for this S shape, I'm wondering if I need another transitional one in here just to get this. Because if I pivot this, it's just going to make this come in. If I pivot this handle, this is going to come in. So I am going to add a node here. And I'm going to make that smooth right away because that's going to be a new transitional node for this area. And now this here, I've noticed a lot of times if you hit Control Z, they all turn back to cusp, or if you do something else, then the ones surrounding it turned back to cusp. And notice that this turned back into a cusp node when I added this. So I'll just make this one smooth again. But I'm going to influence this section with this. So, and if I drag it out, see, I wasn't able to influence it anymore. So I am going to have to drag this one out. Okay. So now that leads me that this area here has to be influenced since this is smooth. Okay. This line, to bring this line down, I have to just make this longer. So it's influencing it down there, and to get this to be longer, I have to make this one longer now. This is smooth too. So I try to make it longer without pivoting it. So see how it's influencing it more down there. Okay. So I'm still smooth. I think I'm following the shape better. Let's see up here. Since I added this node, I probably have to make that. Okay. So let's just see how I did. I'll hit enter. So it looks pretty good. I think I followed the shape pretty well. I squared off these points. So that looks pretty good. So Control S, and then for the, let's see, I will use one of the new ones for this. I am going to use, there was this one that I thought was really cool. It's new. And I'll make the scale. These are pretty small, so I'm going to have to make the scale small. So it's a double layer. It has no choice of being a single layer. We'll leave that. That's fine. We'll leave the contours in, my stitch length, and we'll hit apply. So that one was kind of hard because it was so long, the S's were so long that you just weren't sure about it, you know, just weren't sure what to do. This one is probably going to be easier because I could definitely see the S there. And I'm going to just hit Control S. We'll go into 3D just so you could see how pretty it is. Go back to normal view. And I'm going to pull up my one that I already started because I want to see how I did this. I think I probably put a transition here, a transitional node. So here's the S, here's my transitional area, this straight area, and then I probably put one there. I don't think I just put one all the way here, but I'm curious to see what I did. So I'm going to bring it up. Okay, so I don't want to touch, there it is, it's the third one I did. So yeah, let's see what I did there. So I'll hit edit. Yeah, I just had one transitional node, and look, it's not even smooth anymore. But I'm sure the line is yeah, you could see they're both in the same horizontal plane. Well, in this case, almost vertical plane, but they're in the same plane, I should say. But if I hit smooth, nothing would change. See, it just became smooth. And like I said, whenever you undo something, then they all become cusp nodes again, but they don't change, you know, where their handles are. So yeah, I just put one there. So that's interesting. And then for this shape here, I made it symmetrical, is what I did. You can see it's the symmetry here. So I must have decided that I want these handles to be the same length on both sides for this shape, which is fine. That's interesting that I did that. So, yeah. So we'll make that one done with the other one. We'll go ahead and see. So I'll hit the check and I'll just hit Control S. I'll go back to the other one. You learn a lot just by doing shapes like this. You can kind of see what, I open the same one again, open recent lesson. You can kind of see, what you need to use and what would be easier. And so I'll just go ahead and I'll make another one. And normally I start them wherever I feel is going to be easier for me. And then later I'll set my start and end points once I get my objects down. But so I'll just go ahead and I'll click here and I'll move it there. And I'll leave this unchecked because I want a transitional node there, and I'm on cubic. So my transitional node is where this straightness is. And then down here is where it would end. And so then I'll just grab this line and drag it where I want it. And I can shorten the handles and so on individually in a minute. And then I'll just grab this line and bring it down. So I could have dragged the handles or the line, it doesn't matter. And then this, I'll actually bring it and then drag that. Notice how it shows a node when you're dragging it, where my arrow is, you see a little black node, but when you let go, there's really no node there. Now, if I click this, this looks like it's going to be smooth, okay? But I'm going to click smooth and see if these handles move at all. A little bit, because you want your transition to be smooth. And now I have to make this come out, so that means I'll make this handle longer, still trying to not disturb the pivotness. I should say, still trying not to pivot this. So we'll grab this, and there we go there. And looks like I could bring that a little bit, but that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. And then for this area here, I could use this handle. But it looks like I have pink showing too much down here. So I'm going to influence this a little farther down. And then I'm going to just drag this one out more. Let's see if I can get it all in. To influence this, I'll just drag this longer. Okay, it looks like, though, I think I'm okay with that. If I bring it in, it's going to move this handle, so I'm just going to influence it with this. If I bring it out, it makes that, it influences it a little bit more, but I'm okay with that. But this here is not allowing me to influence it the way I want, so I'm not sure how I got it on the other one without adding another node. Because in this case, I have to add another node. So I'm going to just, with this handle selected, I'll hit Insert. And I'm just going to drag it down to where I want to influence it. And I'm just going to drag this out. Yeah, because it's kind of flat here. So you see where it's flat right there? So where it's flat, right before it starts getting flat right here, I'm going to put this node, and I'm going to influence this side. And then, oops. Oh, that's this one. I'll move that one down for a minute. And I'm going to bring this up. And these two look like they're going to be smooth, but I'm just going to make them smooth. And then this one I'm going to drag out. So I think I followed it a little bit better. Notice how this one got a cusp node when I did the insert. I'm going to make it smooth again. And I'm going to just make this longer to get rid of this. And then I am pivoting it a little bit to influence this. Then I can drag this one. Oh, maybe I can do that and then make this a little longer. I think I'm okay with this. We got smooth, smooth, and then that one. So now I just have to finish it. And I could make this, you could see this is a little bit of an S. So I'm just going to hit end on my keyboard to get to the end. My next note, I'm just going to click and turn it straight rather than changing it over here. And then I'm going to make a transitional, like, I don't know. I'm going to make a note there. Whoops, I want to hit end. And then I'm not sure about this one. So I'm up. I see like a C here, but then it goes kind of S-ish. I'm going to see if I can do this with just that without even putting a note in. And then for up here, I'm going to just put a note up here and see. And I'm going to just drag this down. And let's worry about this. Now, if I have to move this handle, and notice how we're not in a smooth plane here, the two handles. If I make this smooth, I'm probably going to have to add another node here, but let's just see. If I make this smooth, and let's try to get it as close to smooth as we can, because I don't want to ruin this side. So I'm going to just take this and make it shorter and see, I made it almost smooth. And let's see if I can influence that. I think I can. Let's make this smooth. Okay. And as far as it pivoting, I can maybe just move the node. Yeah. I'd have to move it down farther because this side is going down and this side is going to go up. But I don't know if I'm in the right spot. So it's smooth, so they will pivot. And I'm going to make it shorter. Okay. And I'm going to make it longer here so that it gets smoother. And I don't feel like I'm in the right spot. I'm going to go over these. Yeah, I don't think I'm doing a good job with this. I put it farther down and then pivot it, make it shorter there. If I brought this out longer, okay, I can influence it in a longer manner. But as you can see, this has to govern the rest of it. Let's see if I can get it to. I think I did. This is really a hard side. I don't know how I did the other one so well. Let's just go with that. And for here, I just need one node. And I'll close edges and I'll just grab the side up. And I actually want to bring this up. It to be on the tips of those pixels. Let's go 1 to 1 and drag it down. Make sure I'm still good. I'm not sure if this is smooth here. I mean, it looks like, you know, it's a smooth node, but I'm not sure how this is going to look here. Let's hit enter. I mean, it is following it. It was a really hard design to do, or just a really hard shape because of this in through here. If I hide it, let's hit Control S, and you can see, you know, that it's just so weird in through here. That was really hard. So, and what I was thinking about doing was, whoops, let's bring it back, was making each of these a different mesh. Now, since they're so small, probably the curved meshes may not look as good as the ones that have straight lines in them, but we could try it. We could try it. I know these might be a little too much for it, especially this small one. I could try, I don't know what the scale I used. I think I used 75. Could try this one and see. But I think it's still going to be too big. Yeah. I'd have to go down to like 35. I mean, it looks okay. When you have them, when you have circular shapes in a small area, you do have to bring your stitch length down. So I could maybe put my max at 1.5, hit enter twice because I clicked in that field. And let's try that again. But I don't think they're going to change because I think those are, yeah, it's just really tiny. But I don't know if I want to go any smaller or not. I guess I could try 25 and then get done. I wouldn't want to go any smaller than that. Oh, I have it on single layer. I think single layer, when a mesh pattern allows single layer, that's what gets chosen as your default. So you'll want to uncheck it. Oh boy, that really squared it off. So that wasn't good for this design. I'm going to go back to my 2.0. When you hit up here, you just hit enter once. And I'm going to choose a different one. So I'll go back to 75 and I'll choose something that's a little more geometric, but yet different. That's what's hard, to get it geometric but different. So I haven't even tried this one yet. That's interesting. And yeah, this is such a small area. Oh, that's interesting. Probably has to go smaller though. So that's pretty good. So there you go. So then you would just go through and, do each one, Control S. And I think what I was doing was, oh, this was the one where I actually decided to show you how to create a background and then crop it and then just make these little things fill in as if they were a satin, but a satin with a pattern. And I think I have it somewhere. So here is the design that I created, but notice how I have the little satin stitches going through, and they're all different widths. So they're basically, if I go back to the normal view, you can see they're just following whatever open space is in the image. Like, I didn't have to tell Embird to, make this a certain width and so on. It was a little trick that I did to create this, and that'll be in, I think it'll be in July's membership club. So it's really cool because this is a turning satin. This is a it's a turning satin with a fill. So you can see, if I zoom in a little bit, and I gave it the fill pattern that's called Cusp Lines 2. Here it is here. And you could see it's just one continuous pattern. And it's basically just an auto column fill, and it's an auto column, but I'm using a pattern, and this is the pattern I love to use, Cusp Lines 2. It's just so pretty. And Embird just takes over and it stitches all in one continuous run. There's no jumps or anything. You can see it down here. So it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And you can see, though, from the image that, well, I'll go to the normal view. I'll get them both in. They won't be 3D on the one, but you can see how, I didn't even really have to digitize these. The only thing I had to digitize on this design was the pink petals. And then, of course, give it a a boundary or what have you, and I'll show you how I do that in that other video that'll be coming up in July. So it's exciting, and I could take this flower into the cross stitch program too, and I think I did on, I don't know if I did it on one of my videos or if I'm planning to do it, but it's just so much you can do with clip art. It's just amazing. So that'll be something to look forward to. So if anybody wants to join the membership, feel free. And there's a link down in the description. You just go to my website and you click on the link, and it's like $10 a month, and you get access to 3 free videos every month. So it's really nice. It's really nice. And remember, if you don't have Embird, be sure to use the 10% coupon code HJTYM at Embird's eShop, and that'll get you 10% off. And that's also down in the description. All right, guys. Well, we shall see you in the next video, and have fun playing with Embird. Take care. Bye.